when you look at a blueprint for just something completely mundane, like, say, remodeling your kitchen.
Right, or building a deck in your backyard or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a very literal, strictly contained document. It gives you lines and measurements.
Some structural load capacities. Yeah.
Right. It tells you where the plumbing goes so you don't, accidentally flood your entire house.
Right. It's the absolute definition of staying within the lines, both literally and conceptually.
Exactly.
It's a purely physical representation of physical space.
Yeah.
A blueprint is practical. It's bound by gravity.
Right.
You don't unroll a schematic for, like, a retaining wall and expect to find a philosophical treatise hidden in the margins.
But imagine for a second that you did.
Oh, man.
Right? Imagine unrolling this massive, incredibly detailed blueprint for a state-of-the-art train station.
Okay.
You're looking at platform layouts, electrical grids, ventilation systems, but then your eyes drift over to the margins.
Oh, what's in the margins?
Well, scribbled aggressively in the margins are detailed, step-by-step instructions for orchestrating a digital revolution to overthrow a foreign government.
Wow.
Yeah. And then you flip the page, and nestled between diagrams for vacuum tubes is a pitch for a $1 trillion supercomputer.
Just casually tucked in there.
Just casually. And you turn to the appendix, and it's this outline of an ancient, prophesied spiritual age of global abundance.
So suddenly that blueprint isn't really about moving commuters from point A to point B anymore.
Not at all.
It ceases to be civil engineering entirely. It becomes a blueprint for reality itself, like comprehensive world building.
And welcome to today's deep dive, because we are stepping into exactly that kind of document today.
We really are.
We are essentially opening a time capsule for you, a profoundly complex visionary blueprint, and the date stamped on this text is today, Saturday, May 16, 2026.
Right. And for you listening, we're going to unpack this incredibly dense, multi-layered manifesto. It was published on a blog by an author named Paramendra Kumar Bhagat.
And to give you a sense of where this whole journey begins, the main piece of writing we're examining has what sounds like a very straightforward title.
Almost wonky, really.
Yeah, very public policy wonky. It's titled, "The Hyperloop, Not High-Speed Rail, is California's True Bullet Train Future."
Which sounds exactly like a standard op-ed you'd read in, I don't know, a niche transit magazine while waiting in a doctor's office.
Right, like something very dry. But here's where the scope completely shatters your expectations.
Oh, completely.
Because while this absolutely starts out as a civil engineering pitch to solve California's infamous transportation woes,
it violently refuses to stay in that lane.
yes, it rapidly expands into a $1 trillion geopolitical ultimatum.
Before you even realize what is happening, the author is directly addressing tech titans.
Yeah.
Like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel.
And he's detailing his role in a 2006 digital revolution in Nepal, dropping AI-generated punk music targeted at South African politicians.
Which is just wild.
So wild. And he's introducing this entirely new geopolitical framework that he calls DemocracyTech.
It's a staggering exercise in radical synthesis. The author doesn't just connect disparate dots across tech and politics and spirituality.
Right.
He insists that these dots are all part of the exact same underlying equation.
They're all linked. But before we begin untangling that equation, we have to establish some very clear boundaries.
We do.
For how we're going to approach this material today. We need to explicitly pause here and speak directly to you about the nature of this source material.
Because this manifesto touches on some highly charged, extremely sensitive political and economic topics.
Very sensitive. Over the course of this deep dive, we are going to be discussing the author's aggressive critiques of the United States financial system, for example.
Right, and the political situation, corruption, and ruling coalitions in South Africa.
Exactly. As well as historical dictatorships in Nepal and various deeply polarized political figures.
So our mission today is strictly to impartially report, deconstruct, and analyze the author's proposed solutions.
Yes. We are looking at the load-bearing walls of his argument. To be crystal clear, examining this document does not mean we are endorsing or taking a side.
Right. No endorsements here.
None. Not on any of the political viewpoints, the global conflicts, or the specific figures mentioned within it.
We are acting as your analytical guides through the museum of this document. We're seeking to understand the mechanics of the text.
Not to validate its politics. We are dissecting the machinery, not voting for it.
Exactly.
And to fully unpack what the author calls the butterfly effect.
Which is his central thesis, right? That a single targeted digital action can trigger massive physical infrastructure booms continents away.
Exactly that. To unpack that, we're going to take our time. This isn't just a quick skim of a blog post.
No, we have to systematically deconstruct the underground infrastructure plan first.
Then we'll look at the massive financial ultimatums being issued to Silicon Valley.
Then we'll dive deep into the mechanics of his political organizing history.
And finally, we'll navigate the incredibly dense, decades-long ecosystem of the author's other writings to grasp the full picture.
So let's start where the author grounds his entire thesis. The physical soil of California.
Okay, let's dig in. Literally.
Literally, yeah. The diagnosis he offers is something many Californians, and frankly anyone who has ever tracked an American megaproject.
Oh, they'll find it painfully familiar.
Oh, yeah. He targets the California high-speed rail project. He labels it a towering symbol of bureaucratic dysfunction.
Endless delays, spiraling costs.
And regulatory capture, yeah.
I mean, anyone listening who has tried to get a permit to just build a shed in their backyard knows the friction of local bureaucracy.
Now multiply that by a massive train spanning hundreds of miles.
Right, across some of the most expensive and highly regulated real estate on planet Earth.
It's a nightmare. But the author isn't just complaining about the bullet train. He's offering what he views as the ultimate, technologically superior alternative.
And he says the answer isn't throwing more billions at a better traditional surface-level train, right?
No. The answer is a modern, fully underground Hyperloop network, specifically leveraging the tunneling expertise of the Boring Company.
Alongside some very advanced pod technology.
Right. And the framing of going entirely underground is the crucial mechanic here.
It's not just an engineering trick.
No, he presents a 100% underground alignment as the ultimate brute force bureaucratic workaround.
Let's unpack that,
Yeah.
because we have to look at the history of why surface-level infrastructure fails in the U.S.
Right. The decades of delays aren't usually because civil engineers suddenly forgot how to lay steel track or, pour concrete.
No, the delays come from the fact that on the surface, you have to deal with reality.
The messy reality.
Yeah, you have eminent domain battles where people refuse to sell their farms or homes.
And massive environmental impact reviews to ensure you aren't disrupting, like, a specific species of local owl.
Or ruining scenic views. You have to navigate existing surface traffic, overpasses, local municipalities.
Who all want to say in the routing.
Every single town wants a piece. So by proposing to go entirely underground, he is essentially arguing that you can just dig underneath the red tape.
It's brilliant in its simplicity. You bypass the environmental impact on surface wildlife entirely.
You bypass the visual pollution complaints from wealthy landowners.
And you bypass the disruption of prime agricultural land in the Central Valley.
So the physical depth of the tunnel actually becomes a shield against the political and regulatory friction on the surface.
That makes a frustrating amount of sense, doesn't it? If the surface is bogged down in lawsuits, just drop the whole thing 100 feet into the earth.
It really does. But let's unpack the actual passenger experience he is pitching here.
Okay.
Because this is where my mind was slightly blown by the sheer utilitarianism of it. He is proposing what he calls screen-rich pods.
Screen-rich pods.
Yeah. There are no windows in these Hyperloop pods.
Wait, 0 windows?
Zero. Because obviously you're in a vacuum tube deep underground. What is there to look at?
Right.
Just a concrete wall blurring past you.
That makes sense.
Right. So instead of staring out at the sunset or passing cows, passengers are experiencing high-quality video, music, and immersive entertainment.
On massive screens throughout the journey.
It's like an immersive, high-speed sensory deprivation tank.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that just hurls you across the state, completely insulated from the traffic jam and the smog on the surface.
I mean, trading the external environment for a completely controlled, curated internal environment is a profound shift in transit philosophy.
It is.
Think about how we have historically valued train travel. It was heavily romanticized. The observation car, looking out at the American West.
The dining car with the big windows.
Right, that was part of the product. The view was the point.
But the author asks, essentially, why are we, as a society, still so obsessed with looking out the window on a train anyway?
It's a good question. If you take a standard commuter train today, half the people are staring down at their phones anyway.
Exactly. Completely ignoring the scenery.
So if the alternative is gigabit Wi-Fi, giant theater screens enveloping you in a vacuum tube.
And getting from Los Angeles to San Francisco in a fraction of the time.
Yeah, the romance of the window seat seems like an outdated luxury.
The author is definitely capitalizing on that exact shift in modern human behavior, because commuting today is about efficiency.
Productivity or uninterrupted entertainment.
Right. And he pairs this entirely controlled passenger experience with a highly controlled operational environment.
Let's talk about that operation, because the system he outlines relies on 24/7 AI-powered video surveillance.
With human intervention only required when the AI flags a specific anomaly.
So the day-to-day operation is essentially autonomous.
You don't have conductors walking the aisles punching paper tickets.
No. And you don't have human dispatchers manually routing trains.
He is deliberately designing human error out of the daily operational loop as much as possible.
Which also means designing out the massive compounding costs of human labor and union negotiations.
It's an exercise in maximizing speed, maximizing economic efficiency, and minimizing unpredictable, messy human variables.
The variables that constantly plague traditional rail networks.
Okay, so let's follow a passenger on this theoretical journey.
Sure.
You are flying through a vacuum tube deep beneath the earth, watching a movie in your windowless, screen-rich pod.
Sounds relaxing, honestly.
But eventually the pod has to stop. The vacuum tube has an end.
Right, you arrive at the station.
And this is where the author's vision jumps the tracks from a simple transportation solution into something deeply structural.
Something deeply societal, yeah. Let's look at his concept for the Hyperloop stations.
Because he doesn't just want sterile transit stops where you, buy a pretzel and leave.
No, he envisions these terminals as vibrant, all-encompassing hubs. He lists amenities like dining options from every culture,
Public showers, secure lockers, massive gyms.
indoor green spaces, and crucially, what he calls Japan-style sleeping pods.
Okay, this is the first major pivot in the text for me.
Yeah, it's a huge shift.
Because he takes those Japan-style sleeping pods, which, are traditionally used by businessmen in Tokyo who miss the last train home.
Right, a temporary fix.
Right, but he makes a massive economic leap here. He states that these sleeping pods would expand dynamically based on demand.
And crucially, that they would cost significantly less than typical California rent.
He is literally positioning them as a viable, affordable micro-housing option.
He is.
But let me stop you there, because the leap from fast train to living at the station is jarring.
It is a bit of a jump.
A gym and a nice food court are great. But living in a train station, that crosses the line from hyper-efficient urban planning into something that feels, vaguely dystopian.
You think so?
I mean, who actually wants their permanent address to be Pod 4 Platform B? We are completely blurring the line between a daily commute and a permanent home here.
It absolutely challenges our traditional idyllic notions of what constitutes a home. I'll give you that.
For sure.
But we have to look at the underlying mechanics of why he is proposing this. What is the reality on the ground in California today?
It's a mess.
The state is paralyzed by twin intersecting crises, a crumbling transportation infrastructure, and a profound, seemingly unsolvable, affordable housing crisis.
Right.
So what the author is doing is cleverly bundling a transit pitch with a high-density housing solution.
And the arbitrage makes sense when you look at the desperation of the housing market out there.
It really does.
I mean, if you are a young worker who cannot possibly afford a 2-bedroom apartment in Los Angeles.
Which is most young workers.
Exactly. But you can afford a sleeping pod at the Hyperloop hub. And that hub gets you to a high-paying job in San Francisco in 30 minutes.
You have just completely rewritten the rules of real estate.
You no longer have to live where you work.
Exactly. He is creating a self-sustaining lifestyle ecosystem. You aren't just passing through the station anymore.
You are anchored by the infrastructure.
You sleep in the pod, you work out at the terminal gym, you eat at the cultural dining hubs, and you travel from there.
And he extends this ecosystem seamlessly into the surrounding surface city, doesn't he?
He does. He promises dense urban coverage where a Hyperloop entrance is always within a 15-minute walk anywhere in greater Los Angeles.
Which is massive. And for that last mile, the distance between your office and that 15-minute walk radius, he integrates robotaxis to complete the journey.
So the vision is totally frictionless urban mobility.
You wake up, walk out of your microhousing pod, step into an autonomous robotaxi on the surface.
Get dropped at the entrance, take an elevator down, and boom, you're in a vacuum tube accelerating toward another major city.
And the macroeconomic result of this, as he pitches it, is sustained double-digit economic growth.
Because faster travel, vibrant hyperlocal station economies, drastically reduced waste and commute times, it all compounds.
Into massive societal productivity gains.
But, and here's the massive catch in the text.
Oh, here we go.
He makes it explicitly, aggressively clear that this beautiful, hyper-efficient California dream comes with a very specific, steep price tag.
We're officially entering the ultimatum phase of the blueprint.
The tone shifts completely here.
It does. It shifts from visionary urban planner to uncompromising power broker.
What does he say exactly?
The author writes, regarding the entire Hyperloop project, I can get it done, but I will not touch it unless someone makes the first investment in Himalayan Compute.
The sheer audacity of that phrasing demands analysis.
I can get it done, but I will not touch it.
It's a raw assertion of absolute leverage.
It literally reads like a hostage negotiation taking place in a Silicon Valley boardroom.
I have the blueprints to your future, but pay up first.
Yes. He is essentially saying, look, I have the exact blueprint for the perfect future city locked in my briefcase. It will solve your transit, it will solve your housing, it will generate billions.
But you do not get to see it.
And I will not build it until you fund my massive supercomputer project first.
And he isn't broadcasting this demand to, like, a generic venture capital firm either?
No, he is targeting very specific titans of tech. Let's look at the pitch to Peter Thiel.
Yeah, the author publicly asks Peter Thiel for a $100 million investment in an entity he calls Himalayan Compute.
And the return on investment he promises is astronomical.
He writes, your 100M is 30B in 10 years.
A 300x return in a decade.
Mind-blowing numbers.
How does a supercomputer project mathematically justify a jump from 100 million to $30 billion? What is the mechanism behind that kind of explosive growth?
Well, the mechanism is rooted in treating artificial intelligence compute not as a software product, but as foundational infrastructure.
Like laying tracks.
Exactly. Think of it like laying down the railroad tracks or the telegraph lines in the 1800s, the entity that controls the physical compute.
The massive server farms and processing power required to train and run advanced AI.
Right. Whoever controls that controls the fundamental resource of the next century.
Okay, I see.
So he is arguing that $100 million builds the initial infrastructure, which then compounds as every industry on Earth becomes reliant on AI processing power.
Driving the valuation up to $30 billion.
Exactly. And then he adds a deeply competitive psychological hook for Thiel.
Oh, this part is fascinating. He says, Facebook did not do that.
That specific line is a masterful psychological needle.
He is weaponizing Peter Thiel's own legendary investment history against him.
Because Thiel's early angel investment in Facebook is one of the most famous and lucrative venture capital home runs in modern history.
And the author is waving that 300x return in his face, essentially taunting him. Like, I can beat your high score, I can eclipse your greatest victory, but you have to back my vision to get it.
The decision to pitch this way reflects a fundamental belief that traditional venture capital pathways are utterly broken.
Or simply too slow for the scale of his ambition.
Right. The author has linked a detailed roadmap on his blog called Himalayan Compute, 10 years to $1 trillion.
$1 trillion?
Yes. He believes this isn't a project that can survive a standard VC committee with, endless rounds of due diligence and conservative risk modeling.
He is completely bypassing the institutional gatekeepers.
And appealing directly to individuals he views as grand synthesizers. Or, as he categorizes them in another blog title, radiant billionaires.
Radiant billionaires.
Yeah, these are individuals who possess both the immense capital and, theoretically, the massive risk tolerance to fund a $1 trillion roadmap based on the conviction of a single visionary.
But Thiel isn't the only billionaire getting a public ultimatum here. He also directly addresses Elon Musk.
And this is where the scope of the blueprint cracks wide open.
We leave California infrastructure and supercomputers behind, and we enter the realm of global geopolitics.
He asks Musk for $30 million.
But has absolutely nothing to do with the Hyperloop.
No, he asks for it as a down payment on a service he calls DemocracyTech, specifically targeted at the nation of South Africa.
To understand the mechanism of DemocracyTech, we really have to look closely at the parallel the author draws.
He states, Palantir does defense tech, I do DemocracyTech.
Okay, so Palantir, which was co-founded by Peter Thiel, builds incredibly powerful data analytics software for intelligence agencies and militaries.
Right, they take massive amounts of disparate data and turn it into actionable intelligence for defense.
But the author is claiming to have pioneered a parallel category. Instead of software for the military, he applies digital methods to organize human behavior.
To foster accountable governance and essentially orchestrate systemic political revolutions.
And he backs up this monumental claim with what might be the most staggering piece of personal history embedded in the entire document.
It's wild. He outlines his origin story as a political organizer.
According to the text, in April 2006, over a period of just 19 days, roughly 8 million Nepalese took to the streets in protest.
At the time, that was nearly a third of the country's entire population of 27 million.
A third. They completely shut the country down, paralyzed the economy, and forced an entrenched dictator out of power in a peaceful mass movement.
Which is a monumental historical event by any metric.
But the kicker is his role in it. The author claims that the coordination for this massive country-stopping movement was 100% digital.
And that it was orchestrated by him sitting at a computer in New York City.
He notes with pride that German radio dubbed him Robin Hood on the internet.
This specific event is the bedrock of his entire philosophy. This is the origin of that butterfly effect he keeps referencing throughout the manifesto.
I really want to dig into the mechanics of this because it sounds like magic.
It really does.
Coordinating nearly a third of an entire country's population into the streets, and doing it using only the internet in 2006.
We have to remember what the internet was in 2006.
This is the era of MySpace and flip phones. This is pre-smartphone dominance.
Pre-modern social media algorithmic feeds.
How do you physically mobilize 8 million people across a mountainous country like Nepal from a desk in New York City using 2006 technology?
The mechanism lies in early digital cascading and the leverage of expatriate networks.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, in 2006, you didn't have a centralized platform like modern Twitter to broadcast a single message to millions instantly. Instead, organizers used blogs, sprawling email lists, and early discussion forums to coordinate with key activists, journalists, and student leaders on the ground.
So they acted as hubs.
Yes, those individuals then acted as nodes. The digital message from New York, the strategy, the timing, the rallying cry was transmitted to the nodes.
And then they translated that digital signal into physical action.
Exactly. Using local networks, SMS text messaging, and word of mouth, it was a chaotic, organic cascade.
Chaos theory in action.
Precisely. The famous idea that a butterfly flapping its wings in the Amazon can cause a cyclone in Bangladesh.
He states explicitly, "I was the butterfly flapping my wings in New York City."
He is arguing that digital organizing is the ultimate frictionless lever for physical change.
If you can inject the right information into the right network, you can organize human will digitally.
And once the human will is organized, the physical world, the ruling governments, the infrastructure, the institutions must inevitably yield.
So he takes this 2006 Nepal butterfly effect, proof of concept, and he attempts to map it onto 2026 South Africa.
Offering it as a bespoke service to Elon Musk.
He pitches a Gen Z-style, Nepal-style revolution for South Africa to give the country a clean beginning.
And he explicitly promises he will never enter the territory. He will execute the entire political upheaval remotely via DemocracyTech.
We have to analyze the specific tactical leverage he is using on Musk here, because he isn't pitching South African political reform out of pure altruism or abstract democratic ideals.
No, not at all. He has identified and targeted Musk's specific #1 political pain point.
Which is SpaceX.
Yes. The author notes that ambitious physical infrastructure projects, specifically SpaceX rocket launches, were being blocked or delayed by regulatory agencies and political friction.
So his argument to Musk is fundamentally transactional.
Very transactional. He says your traditional lobbying and standard political negotiations have failed.
Your incredibly advanced physical engineering, the rockets, is being grounded by archaic political dysfunction.
Therefore, you must fund my digital political solution to change the underlying political reality.
By funding DemocracyTech to reshape the government, you clear the political runway for your physical goals. It is an incredibly bold, almost ruthless, transactional offer.
Give me $30 million to digitally overhaul the ruling coalition of a foreign nation from afar, and I will ensure you get your rocket launch permits.
But the underlying logic here seems deeply flawed to me.
How so?
Well, he is talking about exporting a strategy that worked in Nepal, a very specific cultural and historical moment in 2006, and applying it to South Africa in 2026.
Right.
Is it really that simple? Can you just copy-paste a digital revolution?
It's a massive assumption.
South Africa is a deeply complex, incredibly diverse nation, grappling with severe economic inequality, a unique post-apartheid political landscape, and entrenched institutional challenges.
It's not a blank slate.
The idea that you can just dial up a revolution from a laptop in New York without ever setting foot in the territory feels absurdly reductionist.
That tension is the multi-million-dollar question at the heart of his pitch. It highlights the extreme, unwavering confidence of the DemocracyTech premise.
He really believes it.
The author genuinely believes that human political dynamics, regardless of the unique cultural geography or complex local history, are ultimately reducible to structural digital inputs.
If you apply the precise digital pressure points, the system changes, period.
Exactly.
And we actually get a fascinating, somewhat surreal glimpse into what those modern digital pressure points look like in practice.
Yeah, the source material has some wild examples.
There are tweets embedded from April 2026 where the author is directly tagging major South African political figures.
He's tagging Julius Malema, Fikile Mbalula, and President Cyril Ramaphosa.
But he isn't sending them traditional political manifestos or policy papers. He is sending them AI-generated music.
He created a custom track called Julius Malema, Populist Punk, Empty Tank, and tweeted it directly at them.
Making sure to tag Elon Musk as an observer?
It is a bizarre detail, but it perfectly illustrates the mechanical evolution of his tactics.
How so?
Well, in 2006, the digital tools of revolution were blogs and sprawling email chains organizing physical strikes. In 2026, the tools are AI-generated media, explicitly designed to go viral, hack the cultural narrative, and capture the fractured attention of the youth.
That is the Gen Z-style aspect of the revolution he promises.
Yes.
How does an AI punk song actually unseat a minister, though? Are we talking about the song acting as a coded signal to coordinate physical protests, or is it purely about destroying political credibility through memes?
It's about narrative destruction and cultural momentum. Traditional political attacks use press releases and debates.
Sure.
Narrative hacking uses viral, easily consumable media to make a politician appear fundamentally uncool, incompetent, or ridiculous to the largest voting demographic. If you can degrade a political figure's cultural armor using AI-generated satire that spreads uncontrollably on social platforms, you weaken their actual institutional power.
He is treating culture as the upstream variable of politics.
Exactly.
So, to recap the sheer scale of what we're dealing with here.
It's a lot.
We started with underground train pods to escape California traffic, moved to a trillion-dollar AI supercomputer, revisited a 2006 digital revolution in the Himalayas, and arrived at AI-generated punk music engineered to topple South African politicians.
Just a normal Tuesday.
If you are listening to this right now and thinking, how does one single human mind contain all of these disparate, massive ideas simultaneously without fracturing?
You are asking the exact right question.
To truly understand the mechanics of this manifesto, we have to pull back the lens and look at the ecosystem of the mind that produced it.
We have to decode the sidebar of his blog.
Yes. The source material we have includes the actual layout of his blog, and the sidebar functions as an index of his life's intellectual work.
It is essentially a map of his psyche.
Scrolling through the sidebar is like looking at the search history of a supercomputer that has been fed every major global crisis and tasked with outputting a single, unified equation for human salvation.
The catalog of polymathic ambition is overwhelming. Let's examine the mechanics of how he connects these fields by looking at some of the titles of the books and prior posts he lists.
Okay, let's look at them.
For instance, he has written a piece called Physical AWS, How the Logistics Cloud Will Reshape Global Commerce,
which implies taking the foundational concept of Amazon Web Services.
The idea that computing power is just a cloud utility you rent on demand.
Right, and applying that to physical logistics, renting warehouses, shipping routes, and supply chains dynamically to ignite an age of abundance.
Exactly the concept, but he doesn't stop at logistics. The next title listed is Precigenetics, the technology that lets us watch life think. How photons, cells, and AI may help us cure cancer and rewrite medicine.
So he is simultaneously engaged in theorizing advanced biotechnology and AI-driven healthcare,
while also planning the global logistics network.
But the true synthesis happens when you look right next to the hard science and logistics and you find deeply spiritual texts.
He lists titles like Calcism, the economic and spiritual blueprint for an age of abundance.
And The Last Age of War, the First Age of Peace, Lord Kalki, Prophecies, and the Path to Global Redemption.
This is the crucial, unifying mechanism of his entire worldview.
For this author, there's absolutely zero boundary between spiritual prophecy, hard technological advancement, and global economic policy.
He explicitly states in the text, the impending age of abundance was prophesied in the scriptures thousands of years ago.
So he isn't just a tech bro trying to get rich.
Not at all.
He views things like agentic AI, quantum computing, and underground hyperloops not just as neat gadgets or profitable ventures, but as the literal, physical manifestation of ancient spiritual prophecies.
He believes technology is the mechanism by which spiritual redemption is delivered to the earth.
He is operating on a cosmic timeline.
He is. He also lists works of fiction in the sidebar. The Country of Geniuses, a race through AI adolescence, alongside several novels about uprisings and revolutions.
He is exploring and iterating on these massive concepts through every possible medium.
Technical roadmaps for investors, spiritual treatises for followers, political manifestos for leaders, and narrative fiction to map out the societal implications.
And the timeline of this intellectual architecture is staggering. If you look at the blog's archive, he hasn't just started writing this manifesto yesterday in a fit of inspiration.
No.
The archive shows he has been blogging prolifically, publishing thousands of posts dating all the way back to at least January 2005.
2005. That means he was building and refining this philosophical framework before he even orchestrated the 2006 Nepal Revolution.
This manifesto directed at Musk and Thiel is not a sudden, erratic outburst of a frustrated blogger.
It is the culmination of a decades-long accumulation of thought.
It is the tactical deployment of what he calls his grand Solara vision.
He has been mapping the exact coordinates of this future for over 20 years, simply waiting for the physical technology and the concentration of billionaire capital to catch up to his theoretical framework.
Which brings us perfectly to the specific moment in time when this document was published, May 16th, 2026.
The author deliberately curates a list of tech blogs and blockchain blogs in his sidebar, which serves as a real-time diagnostic of the world on that specific day.
The environment he maps out is a world on fire. The headlines he aggregates paint a picture of extreme volatility and institutional flux.
For example,
There is an article titled OpenAI Trial Heads to Jury after closing arguments in Musk versus Altman case.
so the titans who control the most powerful technology in human history are literally locked in a courtroom fighting over the future of artificial intelligence.
Simultaneously, he highlights headlines about the crypto market violently crashing, dragging Bitcoin below $78,000.
So the alternative financial systems are proving to be just as chaotic as the traditional ones.
And technologically, there is a massive paradigm shift happening in real time. He references a post titled, "The Party is Over," from vibe coding to agentic engineering.
Let's pause and define those terms for a second, because the distinction is vital to understanding his urgency.
Absolutely. Vibe coding essentially refers to humans just using natural language, just chatting casually with an AI like ChatGPT to generate snippets of software.
It's collaborative and conversational.
Right. But agentic engineering is the evolutionary leap.
It refers to building AI systems that don't just write code when prompted, but actively execute tasks, make independent decisions, manage complex workflows, and operate autonomously.
An agentic AI doesn't wait for you to ask for a script.
No, it identifies a problem, writes the script, deploys it, and monitors the results without human oversight.
He also points to headlines about AI rings that can translate sign language in real time, or massive corporate enterprises training custom AI models without needing specialized machine learning teams.
This specific environment where AI is crossing the threshold from a helpful conversational chatbot into highly autonomous, world-altering systems capable of independent action explains the intense urgency of his pitch to Thiel and Musk.
He sees traditional systems stagnating everywhere. California can't build a train on the surface.
The U.S. fiscal policy is stuck in a loop of printing money. Local infrastructure is crumbling.
Meanwhile, autonomous AI and digital organizing tools are reaching exponential, explosive levels of power.
He believes the window of opportunity is open right now, in this chaotic moment of May 2026, to bypass the global stagnation entirely using these new tools.
But it requires the visionaries, the radiant billionaires, to recognize the unique historical moment and provide the initial capital.
His overarching message is, the world's institutions are failing, the technology to replace them is finally ready, fund my plan, and we can organize this chaos into an age of abundance.
Let's take a deep breath and unpack the immense journey we've taken through this blueprint today.
It's been quite the ride.
We started with what seemed like a frustrated Californian commuter's fantasy of an underground Hyperloop to escape traffic on the 405.
But to get that train built, we had to traverse through the digital overthrow of a dictator in the Himalayas.
Explore the mechanics of a trillion-dollar supercomputer pitch to Silicon Valley.
Decode how AI-generated punk music is weaponized in South African politics.
And uncover a decades-long unified spiritual and economic philosophy of global abundance.
It is a profound, demanding reminder of how deeply interconnected the mechanisms of the modern world truly are.
Or at the very least, how deeply interconnected they can be in the mind of a visionary organizer who refuses to accept the boundaries between disciplines.
Exactly.
And that brings the lens right back to you listening right now. Think about how you naturally compartmentalize the problems in your daily life.
Do you look at a pothole in your local street or a delayed municipal transit project as a completely separate issue from global AI advancements?
Or wild fluctuations in the crypto market? Or political youth movements on the other side of the planet?
The author's ultimate lesson here, regardless of whether you agree with his aggressive ultimatums or his specific technological solutions,
is that everything, the physical concrete infrastructure under our feet, the massive venture capital flowing through server farms, and the fundamental ways we organize human beings politically is profoundly, inextricably linked.
you cannot solve the engineering problem of the train without solving the political red tape.
And you cannot solve the political red tape without understanding the leverage of new technology.
It demands a radically holistic view of problem solving. It challenges us to stop treating societal symptoms in isolation and to start looking for the underlying systemic levers that control the whole machine.
Which leaves us with a final, lingering concept for you to explore long after this deep dive ends.
Think deeply about the core premise of his DemocracyTech.
If a digital organizer sitting at a laptop thousands of miles away could theoretically trigger a massive physical infrastructure boom just by reorganizing the political consensus through targeted digital tools.
And what is the true barrier to the future we all want?
When mega projects fail, is it actually a lack of technology?
Is it a lack of engineering prowess or a lack of steel and concrete?
Or is it simply a profound lack of imagination in how we organize human beings to agree on building it?
Because if the blueprint for a functioning train station inherently requires the step-by-step instructions for a political revolution,
Maybe we've been reading the blueprints wrong this entire time.